It all started that night in my office. My name is Eli Carter, and I'm a junior political analyst, or was, before everything fell apart. The fluorescent hum of the building provided a faint backdrop to my typing. The office was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes every sound seem louder. I was combing through routine files, my mind dulled by endless lines of bureaucratic jargon. Just another late night, I told myself, trying to meet a deadline before the mountain of work could swallow me whole. Then I saw it. Internal Efficiency Framework. A bland title, innocuous even. My mind almost skipped over it, ready to move to the next file, but something about it snagged my attention. I clicked it open, half expecting a boring memo about budget cuts or procedural streamlining. My eyes scanned the opening lines. Nothing seemed out of place, until I hit the phrase, unilateral executive authority. I blinked, then I reread it. My brow furrowed. My cursor hovered over the line as if touching it would explain what I'd just read. Then another phrase jumped out at me. Suspension of legislative oversight. A chill crawled down my spine. This wasn't a framework. It was a manifesto for tyranny. My hands were sweating now. I scrolled further, faster, my eyes darting over words that seemed to grow darker with each line. Bullet points outlining emergency powers. Flowcharts bypassing the judiciary. Timelines marked with chilling precision. This wasn't hypothetical. It was detailed, intentional, ready to deploy. The screen flickered. My pulse surged. For a moment, I thought someone was remotely accessing my terminal. I glanced around the dimly lit office. Shadows stretched and twisted, exaggerated by the jittery light of my desk lamp. No movement, no sound, just me, the computer, and the oppressive weight of what I'd found. I forced my breathing to steady. Think, Eli. Act normal. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard, then moved to the printer icon. The printer roared to life, each page spitting out with a mechanical clunk that felt deafening in the stillness. I flinched at the noise, half expecting someone to burst in and demand an explanation. The pages piled up, each one heavier than the last. A cold sweat prickled my neck. My heart pounded against my ribs, faster and harder with every sheet. The office felt smaller. The air, thicker. I grabbed the stack of papers and flipped through them, the coarse edges biting into my fingertips. The words stared back at me, unrelenting. Consolidation of power, national security justification, enforcement protocols. It was all there. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen it. But I couldn't. I'd opened Pandora's box, and there was no closing it. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway. My head snapped up, heart in my throat. Someone was still here. Late-night cleaners, a coworker burning the midnight oil, or something worse. I froze, straining to hear. The steps stopped, silence, then a faint creak, like a door easing open. I shoved the papers into my bag, my hands trembling. My mouse clicked furiously as I cleared my recent activity, closed the file, and shut down my computer. Every click felt like a gunshot. Every second dragged like an eternity. The creak came again, louder this time, closer. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor, a sound too loud, too sharp. Panic surged as I snatched my bag and bolted for the door. My footsteps felt clumsy, too heavy against the quiet. I paused at the door, listening. Nothing, just the pounding of my own heartbeat. The hallway stretched before me, dim and deserted. My office was in a corner of the building, far from the main exits. If someone was here, someone who wasn't supposed to be, I'd have to get past them to leave. I forced myself into motion, my shoes silent against the carpeted floor. Every shadow felt alive, every flicker of light, a threat. My eyes darted to the corners and edges of doorways, searching for movement. I gripped my bag tightly. The papers inside crinkled softly. As I neared the elevator, the lights above me flickered again. My stomach twisted. I reached for the button, hesitated, then backed away. Too exposed, too obvious. Instead, I turned toward the stairwell. The door was heavy, groaning as I pushed it open. The sound echoed, bouncing off the walls and ringing in my ears. The stairwell was cold, the air stale. I descended quickly, 2 steps at a time, my breath ragged. Halfway down I heard it. A door above me slammed open. A voice barked,
Downstairs.
Unintelligible but sharp. My blood froze. They knew. I moved faster, heart hammering, legs burning. The steps blurred beneath me. Another door slammed below. Trapped. My mind raced. Think, Eli, think. I veered onto the landing, searching for an alternative. A maintenance hatch loomed in the shadows. I pried it open, crawling into the narrow space as fast as I could. Dust filled my lungs, and the metallic scent of rust stung my nose. I pulled the hatch closed just as footsteps thundered past. Voices overlapped, angry, urgent. I held my breath, my body pressed against the cold steel. My bag dug into my side, but I didn't move, couldn't move. They lingered for what felt like an eternity. Then, the voices faded. The footsteps retreated. My muscles screamed as I stayed frozen in place, waiting, listening. Only when the silence stretched long enough did I dare to exhale. I didn't know who they were or how much they knew. But one thing was clear, I'd seen too much. And now, they were coming for me. The diner buzzed with life. Clinking cutlery, murmured conversations, the sizzle of a grill somewhere in the back. But for me, it all faded into a dull hum. My pulse drummed in my ears as I sat across from Karen Yates. She was the kind of woman who didn't flinch under pressure. Her eyes sharp and calculating, her presence commanding despite the shabby booth and sticky table between us. The document felt heavy in my hands, even though it was just a few printed pages. I slid it across the table, my fingers reluctant to let go. Karen's gaze locked onto mine before she picked it up. Her expression gave nothing away, but her lips pressed into a thin line. She unfolded the pages slowly, deliberately, and started to read. I watched her face closely, her brow furrowed almost immediately. Her sharp green eyes flicked across the words, her expression hardening with each passing second. The diner's fluorescent lights reflected off the grease-speckled window beside us, casting a sickly glow over her features. She reached the second page. Her lips parted slightly and her jaw tightened. By the time she flipped to the final sheet, her knuckles had turned white from gripping the papers too hard.
"This can't be real,"
she whispered, her voice almost lost beneath the clatter of plates around us. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Words failed me. Karen leaned closer, her elbows pressing into the sticky surface of the table. The scent of burnt coffee and bacon hung heavy in the air, but all I could focus on was the intensity in her eyes. She grabbed my wrist, her grip firm, almost painful.
"If this is true,"
she hissed, her voice low but sharp,
"you've opened Pandora's box. Do you have any idea what you've done?"
Her words hit like a slap. My stomach churned. I wanted to look away, to shrink under her glare, but I couldn't. I wasn't ready for this, not even close, but I nodded.
"Good God, Eli, do you even know who's behind this?"
she said, leaning back, her fingers rubbing her temples.
"The stakes? You think they'll let you walk away now?"
I stayed silent. What could I say? I didn't know who was behind it, but I knew enough to be scared. Karen wasn't done. She snatched the papers again, shaking them in front of me.
"This is a kill order waiting to happen. If you're right, you're sitting on the kind of truth that gets people disappeared. Quickly."
The word disappeared hung in the air, sharp and suffocating. Before I could respond, the bell above the diner door jingled. My eyes darted toward the entrance. A man in a dark suit walked in, too polished for a place like this. His gaze swept the room, calculating, predatory. My heart slammed into my ribs. Karen noticed him too. Her expression didn't change, but her hand drifted toward her bag. She slipped the papers inside in one smooth motion, her movements casual yet deliberate.
"Don't look at him,"
she muttered. Too late. The man's eyes locked onto mine. My skin went cold. He didn't move immediately, just stood there, watching. The waitress approached him and he exchanged a few words. She gestured toward a booth at the far end of the diner. He nodded, but his gaze flicked back to me before he took a seat. Karen leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper.
"You've got a tail."
I didn't know," I stammered.
"Of course you didn't.
She snapped, her tone sharp but not unkind.
Amateur, listen to me, Eli. We don't have much time."
She scribbled something on a napkin, her handwriting fast and jagged. Then she shoved it into my hand.
"Leave now, go to this address, memorize it, then burn it."
"What about you?" I asked, my voice barely steady.
"I'll handle him."
She said, her eyes darting to the man in the suit.
"You're the target, not me."
Panic clawed at my chest. "Karen, I can't."
"You can."
And she cut in. Her voice was steel.
"And you will. Get up. Go to the bathroom, slip out the back. Don't stop, don't look back."
I hesitated, my body frozen between fight and flight.
"Now, Eli,"
she said, her voice a whip crack. I bolted from the booth, my knees shaky but moving. The diner's tiled floor felt slippery under my shoes. I pushed open the bathroom door and paused, glancing over my shoulder. Karen was still in her seat, calm as ever, sipping her coffee. The man in the suit stood up. My heart leapt into my throat. I ducked into the bathroom, the door swinging shut behind me. My eyes darted around the cramped space. A small window above the sink, too high to reach, but my adrenaline didn't care. I climbed onto the sink, my bag bumping against the mirror. The window squealed as I shoved it open, the sound grating against my nerves. Behind me, the bathroom door creaked open.
Eli.
A deep voice called, smooth and controlled. I didn't answer. I launched myself through the window, landing hard on the pavement outside. My palms scraped against the rough concrete, but I didn't stop. I ran. The night swallowed me, the sound of my pounding footsteps blending with the distant wail of a siren. I didn't look back. My dress shoes clicked against the wet pavement. The data we found, it can't be real. Campaign funds routed through shell companies in the Caymans, all leading back to foreign interests. My first big research project, and I stumble onto this? The neon storefront signs blur through my foggy glasses. I should clean them, but my hands won't stop trembling. Something feels wrong. The hair on my neck stood up on end, an unfamiliar sensation for someone who spends most days hunched over spreadsheets. There are footsteps behind me. Probably nothing. There is no way that suit man found me already. But I speed up anyway, clutching my laptop bag closer. The footsteps match my pace. My heart raced. This isn't like the statistical models I'm used to. This is real, unpredictable. I take a random turn, hoping I'm wrong about all of this. The street's darker here, the streetlight's broken. Stupid move. I've never had to think about personal safety before. The most dangerous part of my job was supposed to be paper cuts. It happened fast. Hands grabbed me, strong, practiced hands that know exactly what they're doing. A brick wall knocks my glasses askew. My laptop bag drops, hitting the wet ground with a splash. I pray the waterproofing holds.
Stay out of things you don't understand, analyst.
His voice is professional, cold. How do they know what I do? My mind raced through possibilities like scanning rows in a database, but nothing makes sense. Another figure appeared, wearing an expensive suit that's oddly out of place in this alley. The guy from the diner. Pure panic gave me strength I didn't know I had. I drove my elbow back like I've seen in movies, connecting with something solid. Pure luck. I snatched my bag from the ground and ran, my Oxford slipping on the wet pavement. I've never run from anything more threatening than a deadline before. They pursue with terrifying efficiency. My lungs burning as I ran harder than I have in my entire life. The gym membership I never used coming back to haunt me. Water soaked through my dress shirt, my tie flapping like a broken wing. The comfortable world of polling data and regression analyses felt like a distant dream, one that I would never see again. I spotted a gap between buildings, barely wide enough for my slim frame. As I squeezed through, I heard fabric tear. The passage opened into a maze of delivery entrances and dumpsters. I picked directions at random, panic and instinct guiding me. There was no time for the methodical analysis I usually relied on. Finally, I stumbled into a doorway, pressing myself into the shadows that would have terrified me an hour ago. Now they're my sanctuary. My breathing sounded impossibly loud. Surely they'll hear it. But gradually, the footsteps fade. I slid down the wall, landing hard on the wet ground. Thankfully, my bag is still here. The data's safe. But for how long? My hands shook as I checked my phone. Should I call the police? The press? Who can you trust when the government itself is compromised? The magnitude of the situation hit me. I'm definitely not prepared for this. My master's in political science never covered what to do when you uncover actual corruption. Analyzing voting patterns and demographic trends didn't prepare me for people in expensive suits trying to silence me in dark alleys. But I think about what this information means. Foreign interests buying their way into our government, all hidden behind clever accounting and policy reforms that took weeks to unravel. If I back down now, I'm complicit. The policy anomalies I spotted weren't just outliers, they're evidence of something rotten at the core of our system. My glasses are cracked, my favorite tie is ruined, my hands won't stop shaking, but somehow sitting here in this dirty doorway, I feel my fear crystallizing into something else. Resolve. They thought they could scare a data analyst into silence. They didn't count on an analyst who understands the true power of information. I pulled out my phone again, my fingers a little steadier now. Time to call Karen. We need to secure the data, create backups. We need a plan. The information I uncovered told me a story, and now it's my job to make sure everyone hears it. no matter what they do to try to stop me. Karen's call came at 3 a.m. My phone's buzz jolted me awake from a fitful sleep, scattering policy briefs across my bedsheets. Her name on the screen sent my heart racing.
Eli, it's worse than we thought.
Her voice is wrong, controlled, too tight. Karen's always composed, but this is different.
This isn't just about one administration. It's corporations, CEOs, and politicians pulling the strings.
I fumbled for my glasses, fully alert now. What did you find?
Not over the phone.
She paused. There's noise in the background. She's moving fast somewhere.
Project 2025 is just the surface. I've been tracking the money, following board members to unofficial meetings. The centralization plan, it's already happening. They're positioning people, changing regulations quietly. By the time anyone realizes...
Over the phone, I heard a crash in the background and Karen's sharp intake of breath. Karen?
My office, they're here.
Her whisper barely carried.
Listen carefully. The evidence is on a blue USB drive. Everything we need, financial records, meeting transcripts, names. I'm heading to...
The line went dead. I tried calling back. No answer. My hands shook as I texted her. Are you safe? 3 minutes passed. 5, 10. My apartment suddenly feels too exposed, all windows and shadows where it once felt warm and secure. Finally, my phone lit up. Karen has texted me back. Office destroyed. I'm safe. Meet tomorrow. Usual spot, 7 a.m. I paced until dawn, too agitated to sit, scanning news sites, social media, everything. Nothing unusual anywhere. No reports of break-ins, no mentions of Karen. They're good at keeping things quiet. At 6:30 a.m., I'm already at our meeting spot, the back table at Morton's Diner, where the coffee's terrible but the sight lines are perfect. Karen taught me that. Always know your exits, she'd said. I'd laughed then. 6:45 a.m. Every opening door made me flinch. Every patron became a potential threat. The waitress's shoes squeaked against linoleum. A truck backfired outside, making me jump. My coffee goes cold, untouched as I am too nervous to drink. 7:05 a.m. Karen's never late. Never. 7:10 a.m. A text. Changed plans, coming to you. Stay there. 10 minutes later, the bell above the door chimed. Karen rushed in, her usual professional appearance disheveled, her blazer torn at the shoulder. A bruise darkened her cheekbone. She slid into the booth, eyes scanning constantly.
We have maybe 5 minutes. They followed me to my house last night, ransacked everything.
Her voice cracked.
They found my family photos, Eli. They smashed them all. Message received.
She pulled out a blue USB drive and slid it across the table, her hand trembling.
Everything's here. Financial trails leading to shell companies. Private emails about Project 2025's real goals. Names of everyone involved. The plan to dismantle oversight committees, consolidate executive power beyond anything we've seen.
We need to go public, I start.
It's not that simple anymore.
Karen leaned forward.
These people, they control more than we realized. Media outlets, judges, regulatory boards. They've been planning this for years. We need to be smart about...
Karen froze, staring past my shoulder. The color drained from her face.
Back door now.
She grabbed my arm.
They found us.
We moved fast, abandoning our coffees. Running through the kitchen, past startled staff, out into the alley. Karen pulled me left, then right, through a maze of delivery entrances.
Take it, I'll draw them off.
She shoved the USB drive into my hand.
Find someone we can trust, someone they don't know about yet. The evidence has to get out, Eli. Everything depends on it.
Karen, I can't.
You can, you have to.
Karen's eyes locked with mine, her serious, steady.
Remember what you told me when I hired you? About wanting to make a difference? Well, this is it.
Multiple sets of footsteps echoed behind us, getting closer.
Go.
She pushed me toward a narrow gap between buildings.
Don't try to contact me. Don't trust anyone they could compromise. And Eli?
A catch in her voice.
Be careful. They're not just protecting politics anymore. They're protecting power.
Karen turned and ran in the opposite direction, drawing attention away from me. I clutched the USB drive, feeling the weight of everything it represents. The comfortable world of policy analysis and demographic studies seems like a lifetime ago. I ran, knowing nothing will ever be the same. Rain pelted my windows as I stared at Chloe's laptop screen, my reflection ghost-like in the blue glow. The encrypted messages blur through my tears. Each decoded line feels like a knife twisting deeper. Chloe has been reporting on my movements, my calls, my meetings with Karen. Every intimate moment between us now feels calculated. My hands shook violently as I scrolled through the files. 2 years together. 2 years of lies. The timestamp on the first message matched the week we met. None of it was real. Keys rattled in the door. I closed the laptop, my heart pounding. Chloe stepped into the apartment, shaking the rain from her umbrella. Her smile died as she saw her laptop on the coffee table.
Eli?
Her voice trembled. She knew that I knew. How long, Chloe? My words tasted like ash. How long have you been watching me? She moved toward me, raising her hands like I am a spooked animal.
I can explain.
Explain what? How you've been spying on me. Reporting everything I do. I grabbed a printout of her messages and thrust it towards her. Every dinner we've ever had, every conversation, was any of it real?
All of it was real.
Tears spilled down her cheeks.
I was protecting you. You don't understand what you're involved in.
Then explain it to me. My voice high, cracked with emotion. Outside, thunder rolled into the night.
Your father.
She stopped, biting her lip. The room spun. What about my father?
He's one of them, Eli. One of the architects of Project 2025.
Each word felt like a hammer blow.
He brought me in to keep you safe, to steer you away if you got too close.
Images flashed through my mind. My father's late nights at the office, the mysterious calls, the sudden unexplained trips to DC. His proud smile when I got the think tank job. Had he arranged that too? You're lying. But even as I say it, the pieces clicked into place. The policy frameworks I'd grown up hearing at the dinner table written in a familiar writing style.
He loves you.
Chloe stepped closer.
Everything he's done
Is about control. I backed away. The project, the surveillance, you, it's all about control. She reached for my arm, a pleading look in her eyes. I jerked away, knocking her laptop off the table. We both dove for it. My fingers closed on smooth metal as she grabbed the other end. We struggled, the laptop between us like a shield.
You don't have proof.
She pleaded. Those messages are just the beginning. I twisted away, trying to break her grip on the laptop. Karen has everything, the whole network, exposing the plot. Her face changed. Something cold replaced the tears in less than a heartbeat.
Karen's evidence won't see daylight.
The laptop slipped from her grip as she stumbled back. I clutched it to my chest, seeing her clearly for the first time. What did you do?
What I had to.
Chloe straightened, her professional mask sliding into place.
The raid on her office wasn't random.
Horror filled my veins. You told them.
To protect you.
She moved toward the door.
Your father wanted you safe, away from this, but you kept digging. The USB drive Karen has? They're moving on it tonight.
I lunged for my phone, but Chloe was faster, snatching it off the counter, holding it behind her back.
I'm sorry, Eli.
Her voice cracked.
I really did fall in love with you. That wasn't a lie.
Chloe turned and ran. I chased her into the hallway, but she was already disappearing down the stairs. Her footsteps echoing like gunshots on the wooden steps. I slammed back into my apartment, my mind racing with all that I learned from Chloe. Karen's in danger. My father's involved. Chloe. Everything about Chloe was engineered. My whole life felt like a construct designed to keep me blind. The laptop felt unusually heavy in my hands. Proof of betrayal, yes, but maybe also salvation. If I can decrypt more messages, find out what they're planning, then maybe. Lightning cracked again, thunder rattling the windows. In its flash, I caught my reflection in the window, pale, shaken, but determined. They thought they could control me through love. Instead, they've shown me exactly what I'm fighting against. I powered up the laptop. Time to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. The TV station's back entrance felt surreal at midnight. Karen's press badge got us through security easily. One last favor from an old contact. My heart pounding as we navigated fluorescent-lit corridors, the USB drive burning in my pocket.
3 minutes until the live segment.
Karen whispered.
Once we're on the air, there's no going back.
The newsroom buzzed with late-night energy. Screens flickered with weather maps and stock tickers. Nobody questioned our presence. Karen's badge and confident stride working its magic. We looked like we belonged.
The evening news desk.
Karen steered me to the left.
Sarah Chen's finishing her segment. When she breaks, we move.
My hands trembled. The weight of what we're about to do crashed over me. My father's face flashed through my mind. Chloe's betrayal weighing on me. All of it leading to this moment. The studio lights blast heat as we slipped behind the cameras. Anchorwoman Sarah Chen read from her teleprompter. her professional smile never wavering. Karen caught the floor director's eye and flashed her badge. He nodded, assuming we're scheduled guests.
10 seconds.
Karen breathed. As Sarah wrapped up her segment, the floor director turned to cue the weather report. Instead, Karen stepped forward.
There is a technical difficulty.
She announced.
Switching to breaking news.
Before anyone can react, I moved the 3 steps to Sarah's desk. The confusion bought us precious seconds. Sarah started to protest, but Karen was already beside her, whispering urgently. Something in Karen's words made Sarah's eyes go wide as the red light starts to blink. We were live. Millions of people are now watching. Good evening, my voice cracked, but I pushed through. I'm Eli Carter, and what I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about our near future. A commotion erupted behind the cameras. Security radios crackled. Karen held up documents, pointing to highlighted sections.
Project 2025 isn't just policy, it's a blueprint for dismantling democratic oversight.
My hand steady as I plug in the USB drive. These documents prove a systematic plan to concentrate power in the executive branch for the purpose of controlling the most powerful military in the world. Corporate money, foreign influence, all hidden behind shell companies and encrypted communications. Men in suits rushed in as the studio doors burst open. This is not security. Their stance is too professional, too practiced. Karen positioned herself between them and me. The evidence is irrefutable, I continued, my voice rising. These are board meetings, financial transfers, and private emails discussing the consolidation of power. Many names you know, people you trusted.
Cut the feed!
Someone shouted. My own father, I pressed on, is the architect of a plan to... The studio plunged into darkness, causing the emergency lights cast everything in red shadows. But it didn't matter. They were too late. The word was out. On the monitors, I see social media exploding with Project 2025 trending. Screenshots of the leaked information are spreading like wildfire.
Time to go.
Karen said as she grabbed my arm. The suits were starting to converge, but Sarah Chen, bless her, accidentally knocked over her chair, blocking their path, giving us the time we needed to escape. We bolted through the chaos, Karen in the lead as we rushed down a service corridor.
This emergency exit.
She panted.
The car's waiting.
Over the footsteps thundering behind us, I heard a voice I recognized from nearly 30 years of familiarity. My father.
Eli, stop. You don't understand what you've done.
The humid night air hit us like a slap as we burst outside. Karen's car was in the alley just outside the door, the engine running. We dove in as flashlights cut through the darkness behind us. Karen threw the car into gear and stomped the gas pedal, tires squealing against wet pavement. The suits emerged in the rearview mirror, talking urgently into their phones. But they were too late. The truth is out there now, multiplying across millions of screens around the world. My phone exploded with notifications. The USB drive sat heavy in my pocket, insurance for what's coming next. Because this isn't over. The broadcast was just the beginning.
They'll try to discredit us,
Karen said, taking a sharp turn.
call us conspiracy theorists, manipulate the narrative.
I nodded, watching the city blur past. Let them try. The people know the truth now. My phone buzzed in my pocket with a text from Chloe.
You have no idea what you've started.
She's right. But for the first time since this began, that thought didn't terrify me. It empowered me. The safe house windows rattled as another tank rumbled past. It's been 3 days since the broadcast, 3 days since the president declared martial law. For 3 days, the city's been a war zone. This is the government's response to the public learning the truth. Karen peered through a gap in the blackout curtains, her face ghostly in the searchlight's sweep.
They're getting closer.
Her words barely carried over the thrum of helicopter rotors. I checked my burner phone. Social media is still alive with protest footage, despite the attempted internet blackouts. Downtown was a sea of candlelight and handmade signs. Resist Project 2025 is trending globally when people can get online. We both freeze as a sharp crack splits the air. Sniper? I whisper. Karen shook her head.
Worse. Breach charge.
The front door exploded inward. Smoke grenades bounced across hardwood floors. Karen grabbed my arm, yanking me toward our escape route, a maintenance tunnel we'd scouted earlier.
Move!
Heavy boots thundered above as we dropped into the basement. My fingers scrabble at the hidden latch to the tunnel entrance that hid behind a false wall panel. Footsteps echoed on the stairs.
Eli,
My father's voice called out.
it's over, son. You've done enough damage.
The panel slid free. Karen pushed me through the entrance as flashlight beams cut through smoke. A bullet sparked off the concrete inches from my head. We ran. The tunnel's low ceiling forced us to crouch, old pipes dripping rust-colored water down our necks. Every footstep echoed. Behind us, radio chatter and shouted commands grew fainter.
Left here.
Karen whispered. Cold water soaked through my shoes as we emerged from a storm drain. An explosion rocked the ground above. They're searching systematically, destroying everything to find us. The evidence we released struck deeper than we'd imagined. They're desperate now, dangerous. We splashed through the darkness until Karen stopped at a maintenance ladder.
Up. Carefully.
I lifted the manhole cover a fraction. Red and blue lights strobe across wet pavement. National Guard checkpoints block major intersections. A tank idled at the corner, its turret scanning. But behind the military cordon, something else caught my eye. People, hundreds of them, thousands, defying the curfew, holding candles and phone lights against the darkness. Their signs wave like battle flags, defend democracy and no to Project 2025 and power to the people. Karen, look. Karen's breath caught as she climbed up beside me. More protesters emerged from side streets, streams joining to form a river of light. The tank crew looked uncertain, young faces visible through open hatches.
This is bigger than us now.
Karen whispered. My phone vibrated with a message from Chloe.
Your father has ordered live ammunition. Get out of the area, please.
As if on cue, shots cracked across the night. But instead of scattering, the crowd surged forward. Their chants echoed off buildings. The world is watching. They're right. Despite media blackouts, smartphone footage flooded the internet. Every act of resistance, every peaceful protest met with military force, broadcasted globally. The truth about Project 2025 can't be contained.
We need to move.
Karen tugged my sleeve.
There's a resistance cell in the warehouse district. They'll have computers, satellite uplinks. We can coordinate.
Karen was interrupted by more gunfire that was much closer now. A helicopter spotlight swept the street. We ducked back underground as boots marched right past our hiding spot. They can't shoot everyone, I said, but my voice shook.
No.
Karen's eyes gleamed in the darkness.
That's the one thing they can't do. Every act of force just proves what we revealed. The more they crack down,
The more people wake up. Above us, the chants grew louder. More people joining mean more lights in the darkness. My father and his allies wanted to centralize power, to control everything from the shadows. Instead, they've triggered something they can't control. The power of truth, spreading person to person, screen to screen, heart to heart. We waited for the helicopter to pass, then slipped back into the night. There's much more work to do. The conspiracy runs deep, but tonight has shown us something crucial. We're not alone anymore. The revolution has begun. The office towered over the city like a fortress of glass and steel. Security escorted us through marble lobbies, past priceless art and important-looking people. Everything screamed power, wealth, control. My shoes sank into plush carpeting as we were led to the top-floor penthouse. Mr. Harrison waited behind a mahogany desk wider than my first apartment. He rose, all-practiced charm and expensive suit. A Washington power broker who'd bankrolled Project 2025 from the shadows.
Miss Yates, Mr. Carter.
His smile never reached his eyes.
Please sit.
Karen remained standing, but I sank into a leather chair, exhausted from weeks of running. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, I see the military checkpoints dotting the streets below. The protests still rage, but they feel distant from this air-conditioned sanctuary.
Quite a mess you've made.
Harrison's voice stayed pleasant.
But messes can be cleaned up, narratives adjusted.
A folder with my name embossed in gold on the front slid across his desk.
We're offering you a unique opportunity,
Harrison leaned back.
a chance to shape policy from within. Your father speaks highly of your abilities, Eli.
My throat tightened at the mention of my father.
Full immunity, of course. Generous compensation. And Ms. Yates, your own think tank, a chance for real influence.
Harrison continued.
you mean controlled opposition?
Karen's words cracked like a whip.
I mean, evolution.
Harrison spread his hands.
Project 2025 is happening. The question is, Will you help guide it towards something better, or remain an outsider throwing pebbles in the ocean?
I opened the folder, position papers, policy frameworks, my name listed as director, everything I'd ever wanted, a chance to make real change.
Eli,
Karen's voice carried a warning.
Think about it.
Harrison purred.
No more running, no more fighting, stability, security. Your father wants you home, Eli.
Home. The word hit like a physical blow. I was so tired of hiding, tired of looking over my shoulder. Maybe, just maybe, we could change things from the inside.
they don't want reform.
Karen's sharp voice cut through my rationalization.
They want silence.
Harrison's smile tightened.
Ms. Yates, surely you understand pragmatism. The world isn't black and white.
No.
Karen stepped forward.
It's written in the blood of the protesters your troops shot, in the rights you're stripping away from every American, in every lie you've told to grab power.
Power has already been taken, Miss Yates.
His mask slipped, showing something cold, almost inhuman.
This is about minimizing damage to the country and to yourselves.
But Harrison is talking about minimizing damage that he and my father caused. Without them and their relentless reach for more power at the expense of American freedom, there would be no damage to minimize. My fingers traced the folder's edge. Inside there was a photo. My father and me at my graduation. A reminder of simpler times. Of the path I was supposed to take.
Last chance.
Harrison checked his watch.
The alternative, well, martial law has many uses.
Karen moved toward the door, stopped and turned back to me. In her eyes, I see everything we've fought for, every truth we've exposed, every life risked to resist Project 2025. I stood defiantly. The folder fell from my lap. You're right, Mr. Harrison. My voice steady. Power has been taken, but legitimacy? I met his gaze. That has to be earned, and you've lost it. His facade cracked.
You're making a mistake.
No, I turned away. I'm choosing the freedom of all Americans. A harder path, but the right one. Karen and I walked out together. Behind us, Harrison barked into his phone. We'll pay for this refusal. This means more running, more fighting, more sacrifice, and ultimately, more reward. But as the elevator descended, I stood straighter with a newfound pride in myself. They offered us everything, except the one thing that matters. Integrity.
They'll come after us harder now.
I nodded. Let them try. The lobby felt different on our way out. All that marble and art, symbols of power built on corruption. But outside, beyond the military cordons, people still marched, still resisted, still believed in democracy. We stepped out into the sun, choosing our side, choosing truth over comfort, fight over surrender, right over easy. The harder path awaits, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. We didn't save democracy, but we woke it up. And as I watched we the people take up the fight, I finally felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope.